You're not paranoid.
Chocolate. Katie's eating chocolate. I felt like last episode, I don't know if it's because I was listening in my car, but I could hear both of our lips for some reason. Like all of the mouth lips, like we were very moist mouths last episode. We were just like everything.
I can sometimes hear my nose breathing.
Sorry, not allowed to breathe. Hey,
What's up?
hey, you over there on the couch.
Me?
Yeah, you over there. Don't slouch.
Well, kind of impossible not to.
Hey, you over there. Don't
Yeah?
be a grouch. Be a kangaroo and sit in the pouch.
Okay.
I was just trying to rhyme again.
Okay, I just didn't know if you're being literal. I was like, I don't know where to go. She wants me to be a kangaroo and sit in the pouch. I don't know.
Next to a couch and don't be a grouch.
I can do those things.
Right, nouch. That's a word I made up.
Help.
Yeah. What up? This is Kylie in the house. Who's that over there on the couch?
It's me, Katie.
Oh my gosh, hey.
Hey.
What's happening?
Nothing much. I like your, I think this is going to be the start of your rap career. Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I'm trying. I'm not really trying. It's just more fun. Writing those things, I have gotten better at rhyming.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm a little delayed, but who cares?
I'm just
Keep
saying,
them waiting. Keep them on their toes.
in a couple years, you're going to be like the hottest new rapper. And then the interviewers are going to be like, how did this all start? Where did you, like, what's your origin story?
When I was in college. And then it's the Natalie Portman rap. Just kidding. I've never done that.
You'd be like, well, it was
Stuff for reals though, actually.
It was a warm evening in April. I was podcasting and
When I was podcasting,
it just hit me.
she sat down on the couch. I sat there looking grumpy, but she was the real grouch. What, ooh, who's in the house? JC. That's that other YouTube video. See, I just like to use YouTube videos that I've heard and combine them. Remix, and then you'd be the DJ. This is it.
Oh my
This
God.
podcast is actually a secret setup for Katie. DJ Katie.
You have to come up with a DJ name.
I thought Katie sounded cool, but I guess.
Like just K and T.
Yeah.
Okay.
T. And then, I mean, I don't know what to call me, but we'll think about it.
We'll have to come up with a cool name.
It'll happen.
If you guys have any suggestions, let us know.
My name's Kylie, so it could be something like
A play
that.
on Kylie.
But not like the Jenner. Like the
Ew.
Kylie myself. And Kylie Minogue.
You guys were there first.
Thanks. Actually, I am older than her. I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
So, there we go. She tried to freaking copyright her name or whatever, trademark,
Okay.
whatever it was. But I think it's already, like, if you go to Kylie.com, I'm pretty sure it's Kylie Minogue.
Ooh.
Besides
burn.
my website, which is Kylie.net. Just kidding.
Kylie.ca /
Yeah, that's definitely not Kylie Jenner, so that's definitely Kylie Minogue.
Ooh, see, that's what happens. Sometimes there's benefits to being older.
I know, and she spells it right.
How else
like
would you
Kylie
spell
Minogue.
Kylie?
Oh my lord, are you serious? Because everyone tells me every other way. They're like Kylee, Kyileigh,
No.
Kailey.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
You're telling me? And then when I find someone else who has the same spelling as me, it's like you met your new best friend. You're like, oh, you spell it right. And
so
then
that's
we're like,
how you become your best friend.
hey, this is a podcast by Kylie and Kylie. It's like the
We're
Aarons, but
best
the Kylies.
friends.
Oh, man.
Ever since I changed my name.
Now we're best friends. All the other times we were faking friendship, but now it's real. Yeah.
Yay.
Oh yeah. Hey, what's up? This
What's
this is Kylie, obviously, because I just said that 30 times. That's also Kylie. Just kidding.
AKA Katie.
AKA DJ KT.
Worker.
And this is our podcast. You're not paranoid. Thank you, DJ Katie.
You're welcome.
So here we are. We're a podcast talking about things that you get called
Paranoid for caring about.
Yeah, like diseases and
Crimes,
natural disasters and other crimes,
etc.
Yeah, basically any
Safety.
safety, the facts. We try to add some stats, talking about things that a lot of people think we're crazy for worrying about.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing, they really happen.
Yep.
So we think it's better to talk about it ahead of time before it might happen to someone else and learn from other people's stories.
Yep.
And awful situations. And this is a comedy, so we try to talk through it lightly, but we don't want to take away from the seriousness of it. So sometimes when we're laughing, it's more awkward / trying to have fun.
Yeah, because we're funny
about scary things. Because, it's more fun to laugh than cry or freak out. And again, we're clinically not paranoid, nor are we socially not paranoid, or whatever people say. Well, you know what I mean. Okay, you're
socially
in the way of in the way that people will say, like our podcast
like I hate
title.
people.
No,
Okay.
Like socially not paranoid in the way of we're not going to not do things.
Oh.
Like people are like, wow, you're so paranoid about this and that. It's like, yeah, sure, you can call me that, but it doesn't change the fact that people are affected by these things. So call me what you want, but it happens.
It does. But we're not going to be afraid.
We're afraid.
We're going to live our lives.
I'm afraid, but we're going to go outdoors still.
Oh, yeah.
We know the risks.
We're trying to educate ourselves.
Yeah.
And everyone listening.
Yes. So thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
And thank you, audience, for your time. Listeners. Okay, so I have an update from last main episode.
I keep doing that into the...
Don't apologize to me. Apologize to our fans. All 400,000. Well, I have billions when you can have millions.
I mean,
that's Austin Powers. But anyways. Okay, update. So not Phobia Friday, but the episode called Decoy Ducks, where we talked about life jackets and helmets. I said in a story that my friend's friend was on his boat and he hit a wake, and then he went flying off the seat onto the bow. That was a typo. He hit a whale.
Wait, what?
Not a wake. I misplaced that letter. A whale.
No.
Yes, and I didn't even catch it until I heard back, and I'm like, they did not hit a wake. He hit a whale. So I put a K instead of an L.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, he freaking hit a whale.
How?
Because whales go to the surface, and sometimes you don't see them.
But what are the odds? Does
actually
that
not that slim, because
Whoa.
that almost happened to us when we were in Central America, and we came up on I was sitting luckily at the bow, and I happened to be looking, and all of a sudden, because we're going pretty fast, and so we're approaching it, and as it's kind of coming up to the water to go back down, the blowhole's like blowing, and then I'm like, slow. And I'm like, alto, because he speaks Spanish, and the captain spoke Spanish, and he did like completely slowed down immediately, and then we let the whale pass. But we could have, if we didn't stop, we for sure would have hit that whale.
Oh,
I know, and that poor guy, but that guy was alone, so he didn't have anyone looking.
Jeez.
Right? So that's why he went flying, because it was a dead stop. A wake could bounce you. But
a whale
will for sure
throw you,
stop you. Yeah.
Dang.
So I feel bad for the whale. He never told me how the whale was doing. I hope
was
okay.
it a big boat?
I'm guessing not a huge one. If you can, I mean, any boat you hit a whale, you're probably gonna.
Got
everyone's a little messed up.
Maybe a little scrape.
Yeah, hopefully the whale's okay. I don't think it was a huge boat though, because the guy was by himself and he was fishing. It's usually like maybe 20 foot, maybe a little smaller, something like that.
Dang.
Anyways, so I had to say that. I was like, it's a whale, not a wake.
Dang.
But I was cracking myself up, because literally, like, oh no, Wake isn't spelled with an H, so
I mean, it could be.
I messed up all around.
That's fine.
But yeah, it was a whale. LOL. I mean, not LOL at the whale, LOL at my mess up. But anyway, so this week, hope the whale's okay. This week, what are we talking about, Katie?
We're going to talk about stalking.
Stalking. Stalkers.
Stalkers. Stalks
Suck.
of corn.
Corn that stalk you. Children of the
Ooh.
corn.
Ooh.
No, that's a whole other
Nope.
episode. So stalking. Have you been stalked before?
I don't think so.
How are you?
But it could be like online.
And it could be happening and you not know, technically.
Yeah, I guess that's the whole point of a stalker. Well, the mindset of a stalker at some point, like, because I've been reading the different stories, and some are letting you know, and others are kind of in the background.
Like mind game versus, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into it. So in this episode, we're going to talk about the laws that are in place for against stalking. Sorry, that's so gross. Okay. The laws in place against stalking. And then we're going to talk about stories. Is that right?
Yes.
Katie's going to tell some stories. And then I'll cover the different types of stalkers that there are.
Because I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. Like the psychology and categorizing the different types.
Oof.
And then we're going to wrap up with Katie talking about
How to stay safe and some tips if you are being stalked.
not for those who are the stalkers. For
No.
people being stalked.
12 ways to better stalk your victim.
Oh my gosh.
No,
That would be so awful.
that's not what's happening here.
But yeah, and then we'll probably bring up that show You
yes,
on Netflix, which
spoiler alert.
if you haven't watched it yet, don't listen to this episode unless you don't care about spoilers, because that show is real good. And
yeah, it's pretty cray.
it's about stalking, and that's kind of what we already wanted to cover stalking at some point. But then I made Katie watch the show. I'm like, you have to watch it before we talk about it. So so she did.
And here we are.
Here we are. This is it. We're doing this. All right. So I came across this website that is called, one of the primary places I got a lot of my information was victimsofcrime.org.
Yep.
Amazing
Me
website. Cool. Super amazing website.
Yeah, it's a really good resource.
Super good resource. They have this one, I don't know what to call it, a post, or it's like an article, and it's just about the laws of stalking, and it talks about like the different models of law that should be in place for states. But anyways, this is where this little excerpt came from, and it summarizes what stalking really is. So I'm just gonna read it verbatim. And then we'll get into the laws themselves. So stalking is a crime of intimidation and psychological terror that often escalates into violence against its victims. Stalkers can destroy the lives of victims, terrorizing them through a course of conduct that may include monitoring, following, threatening, or harassing victims in a variety of ways. Stalking often has devastating consequences for its victims. Many are forced to profoundly alter... Wow, what's wrong with my mouth today? I'm like trying to enunciate and then I just mess everything up.
Mouth's drunk off the LaCroix.
Many are forced to profoundly alter their lives, going as far as relocating to another state and changing their identities to protect themselves and their families.
That's so sad.
So anything that has to do with I can't say monitoring. Wow. Monitoring, following, threatening, or harassing. Not good. All right, so in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and all tribal and federal lands, that's what we're talking about for a minute here, stalking is considered a crime.
That's good.
Yes. However, how the crime of stalking is defined varies in each state and land.
Oh, brother.
Yep. So stalking itself wasn't actually considered a crime until there were several high-profile cases, including the 1989 murder of actress Rebecca Schaeffer, who then her death drew attention to stalking on a national level. Before this, it was commonly referred to as harassment, obsession, and in some situations, domestic violence. So in 1996, Congress criminalized interstate stalking as a federal offense. Currently, the laws cover the so there's actually quite a few laws about what stalking is. I'm not going to go through each one
Oh man.
in super detail, but I'm going to cover the high level of what they're actually covering.
Okay.
Some of them are going to overlap. So they cover like what they actually define what stalking is. They have a separate law for harassing via phone calls, because a lot of the time stalking is an in-person following kind of thing, like surveillance and whatnot. What happens if you violate a protection order or like a restraining order that is against you? And there's specific penalties for this. There's also a law that says if a restraining order is in place in one state, it must be enforced in any other state.
Oh, that's good.
Despite what those other states' laws are.
That's good.
And it's referred to as full faith and credit given to the protection orders. And that was only put into place in 2006. So stalking itself as a law is pretty fresh. I mean, it's just 23 years old.
Yeah, I can.
No, that makes me feel old. 1996. Jeez. Okay.
Just watching some of those investigation ID channel shows of like women who are stalked like in the 80s or earlier. It's so sad because they knew that like what was happening and all their friends and family did, and even the police would be sympathetic, but they were like, we can't do anything because there's no laws.
1996.
Ugh, that's crazy.
Which to me, stalking is almost, just when you look at it from a psychological level, is almost more scary because you see it coming.
Yeah.
Whereas not saying murder is not scary, but typically if someone's murdering you, they're not prolonging it like as a cat and mouse game. It's like they're doing it.
Yeah. That
sounds really awful, but do you know what I mean? They also define in the laws, they define restitution for victims as to what they should get for the particular crimes. And then my personal favorite one is there's a law that's called pre-trial release of defendant, and that was enacted in 1994. So these are more for like this is a more general one, not just stalking, but it's under the collection of stalking as well. So before a defendant is released, there will be a pre-trial to determine the conditions of the defendant's release, and the alleged victim shall be given the opportunity to be heard regarding the danger posed by the defendant.
Wow. And that's for only stalking
I think that's a general one because this came actually 2 years before the stalking definition or laws kind of came out.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So at least the victims themselves have some say.
Yeah.
To what extent the law's gonna, or the judge and court are gonna uphold those recommendations. I mean, I feel like it's not always 100% in the victim's favor, unfortunately, because not everything can be, and they have their reasons, but at least there's the opportunity. So penalties for stalkers, this is really upsetting. So if the stalker kills someone, they are sentenced to life for any term of years. So it's, I think, up to the state at that point. These are all on the federal level. The second penalty is for no more than 20 years if permanent disfigurement or life-threatening bodily injury to the victim results.
Jeez.
But what's so frustrating is it's saying no more than 20 years.
Yeah.
Not minimum. Not more than 20 years.
For permanent
disfigurement or life-threatening bodily injury. Not more than 10 years if serious bodily injury to the victim results, or if the offender uses a dangerous weapon during the offense. And the fifth one is for not more than 5 years in any other case, or both fined and imprisoned. But you have to remember, this is the federal level, and every state has its own.
So it has to be involved with interstate stalking.
Yeah.
Or across state lines.
Yep. So.
Interesting.
So those, I mean, at least there's some laws in place, but here's the thing.
Oh no.
This is a quote from the actually, this is from Victims of Crime, I think. But in other words, the laws have not kept pace with rapidly evolving stalking methods and have, in fact, posed serious barriers to law enforcement officers and prosecutors in making arrests and securing convictions.
Wow.
So that's the thing, is that people can get away with it because, as we've just talked about, there's going to be holes, right? So the fact that there is the federal level, but each state has their own, and I'm going to go through some of those things, and they're quite different. I'm not going to go over I'm not going to go through each state separately. I'm just going to talk about what the laws what each state law takes into consideration for their laws.
Okay.
So like anyone listening right now should look up their state laws on stalking and kind of know where it goes, because it ranges greatly. So each state has different requirements to determine if the type of stalking is considered a crime within the context of the state's law and the situation the victim is in. So there's a lot of like specific criteria to be considered stalking. So I'm going to go through those. Victimsofcrime.org breaks this down to understand the laws into 7 categories. So when you're like going through and reading the laws, these are the 7 things that you should be looking for. It's the course of conduct, or like how the stalker is stalking the victim. Intent requirement. The third one is standard of fear. Number 4 is the fear element, or like the level of fear that the victim has. What the threat is, what the target of the stalker's acts are, and crime classification. So I'm just gonna define those kind of quickly if I can. All right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, these laws, it's not cut and dry. There is not stalking is this in all 50 states. So course of conduct is defined as how the stalker is stalking the victim. States require that the stalker performs certain actions in order for it to be considered stalking. Of course, they don't word it like that, but this is my Kylie version of like how ridiculous this is.
Wow. I'm already mad.
I know. So I know Kitty's like
like fidgeting with the power cord.
Yeah. So questions that they want you to think about are: does your state course of conduct language include all types of stalking, like GPS equipped cell phones, or even recruiting family or friends to stalk for them?
What?
Yeah. Number 2 is how many actions must the stalker take to fulfill the course of conduct stalking requirement for it to be considered stalking? Would one threatening post on social media meet the requirement? Intent requirement. States categorize stalking as either general intent crimes or specific intent crimes. General intent means that the stalker intends the actions in which they engage. So in this case, the prosecutor doesn't have to prove that the stalker intended the consequences of their actions. Whereas specific intent is the stalker must intend to cause the results of his actions, like the victim's fear, to be considered stalking, which is more difficult to prosecute, because how do you prove, unless that person is, testifying, but that's a whole other thing. So there's a standard of fear requirement, how fearful the victim is because of the stalking. Some states require evidence that the victim was actually fearful of their stalker, meaning the victim usually has to testify, about their fear or changes that they had to make in their lifestyle because of the stalker.
Wow. That one, I think, when you were saying it, makes me the most mad.
Get ready to get more mad.
No.
Other states require that the stalker would cause a reasonable person to be in fear. And other states require both, that the victim is fearful with proof and that a reasonable person would feel the same way.
Oh my God.
I think they have those in place so that people can't just like a teenager can't be like, my mom is stalking me.
Yeah. Or
like she won't leave me alone. I'm so annoyed or something like that.
Yeah. Or like if you like during breakups,
yes,
like the other person turning around and be like, well, he's or she is stalking me now.
But that can happen.
I know.
So let's keep going. Oh. So number 4 is the fear element. How, like, what level of fear that they're feeling. So this one is really upsetting. States vary greatly on how fearful a victim and or a reasonable person must feel in order to make the stalker's behavior considered criminal. A number of states only require that the victim is fearful for their safety or suffer from emotional distress. But some states require that the victim feels terrorized, frightened, intimidated, or threatened, or fear that the stalker intends to injure the victim or their property. One more, let's get deeper. Other states require that the victim fears serious bodily injury or death. But why do we have to wait till this point to stop them?
That's what.
Why do we have to wait until we're about to die
Yeah.
to stop a stalker?
And how are you going to
Legally.
prove that? And then it would have to be like an attempted murder charge, and then it wouldn't be stalking.
Right.
Oh, but it's also like that makes me so mad too. Of like, oh well, your stalker has to like make you X amount fearful. It's like, why can't you just being afraid of the person
Isn't enough.
It's not enough.
No, they want you to prove it for some cases. Number 5 is the threat. Many states require that the stalker pose a credible threat to the victim. Implicit threats that the stalker makes can be difficult to prove because the threat might only be understood by the victim themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like if the stalker and the victim used to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
So the example that they gave was like leaving a love letter or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That to like an officer would be like, oh, like there's nothing creepy about it. Like what's so dangerous about a love letter? But
Mm-hmm.
if you've told this person, no, I do not want to be with you.
Yeah.
And yet you say, please leave me alone. And yet they still pursue that,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that you do not want that.
Yeah.
That is not cool.
Mm-mm.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Because then what if the letter is like, I would do anything to be with you.
Exactly.
So that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Some states even require proof that the offender is capable of carrying out their threats.
So you have to have been injured.
Yeah, like what am I supposed to do? Die to get a restraining order?
And that's what I was like, a lot of those ID channel shows were.
Yeah.
It was like the police and everything could only step in once the person was physically attacked.
Right. Prevention. It's almost like preventative medicine.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like why are people waiting to get treatment until they're already having a heart attack? How about we change our diets? How about we get a restraining order? How about we stop people from getting murdered and attacked and believe them when they say that they're getting threatening letters and everything like this? So that's where the, proof and all that comes into play. And obviously every state has its reasons, but people are still getting stalked and people are still dying.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that is kind of a more of a myth. Not saying that people take advantage of the system, but when people say like, oh, well, if you don't have those in place, then everyone's just going to accuse each other of stalking.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't think that's the case.
Right.
You might have someone lying about it, but I think it's such like a terrifying situation where you're not going to just have random people like pretending.
Yeah.
So it's like you should believe the people when they say it's happening to them.
Yeah.
And what's the worst that could happen? It's like, okay, we'll give them a restraining order. So then, like, either way, that person doesn't want to see the other person. So
yeah. Yeah. We'll cover it a little bit more. Don't worry. So number 6 is the target of the stalker's acts. Most stalking laws require that the victim must believe that themselves or a family member are in danger. So some states have extended, so it's like, who are they targeting? So it's understanding like is stalking a crime if it's beyond just you? What if they're stalking your family? What if and that kind of reminds me a lot of Dirty John. Mm-hmm. You should listen to that. I started
Oh, you
did?
To it, yeah.
Good. Reminds me of that because it again goes, and the mom actually does file a restraining order for her daughters too.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, I like spoiled.
Okay.
But anyways, you get it.
Yeah.
You know where it's going. It gets really good. But anyways, or bad, gnarly. Anyways. So then the other one was like some states have extended it so that it's still considered stalking if the stalker targets other people like a friend, a significant other, or even the victim's professional counselor or their attorney.
Oof.
So you can imagine if you're getting, if the stalker is getting a restraining order against them and they start stalking the attorney who's filing that, or, you know, in the process of whatever's happening, is the attorney protected?
Wow.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Even though they're not the victim, but then they become, so that's like,
yeah,
just kind of understanding it could be both. But obviously they wouldn't have these things in like talking about this if it wasn't happening. Okay. And number 7 is crime classification. So what is stalking, or when is stalking considered a crime? Only 14 states classify stalking as a felony when it's a first-time offense.
Really?
Yes. 35 states consider stalking a felony upon the second-time offense.
Is that like per person? Or like each time they get caught?
I think it's each time they get caught. So yeah, So 35 states consider it to be a felony if it's a second offense and or the stalking involves aggravating factors, which include possession of a deadly weapon, violation of a court order or condition of probation or parole. The victim is under 16 or is the same victim as a prior offense.
Okay.
So it could be either, really. And in Maryland, stalking is always a misdemeanor.
Come on, Maryland.
Yeah. So there have been 3 major studies with stalking. Is it okay if I tell you the stats about stalking, or do you cover that at all?
No.
Okay, cool. So there have been 3 major studies about stalking. The first one is the National Violence Against Women Survey in 1998. These are a little bit older because this is from that website when they're collecting data for a long time. So bear with me. But I think it's still applicable, if not growing, especially with the access of social media. So yeah, that survey in 1998 found that an estimated 1.4 million people are stalked annually in the United States, meaning 1 in 12 women and 1 in 45 men will be stalked at some point in their lives.
And this is from 1998.
Yes.
Before the internet was really crazy.
Yes.
Oh boy, that's definitely way higher now.
Yes. And again, this is, I believe, from, I'll have to double check. It's either victimsofcrime.org or Victims of Crime.
Wow.
And then talking some stats. These are kind of intense stats, but I'm going to try to break it down nicely as best as I can. 87% of all stalkers are men. 94% of female victims are stalked by men, meaning 6% are women, obviously. Or I guess if you're not
men.
Yeah. 60% of male victims are stalked by men.
Really?
That's what it says.
That's kind of surprising.
I'm just going to say the wording on a couple of these were weird, so I hope I interpreted them correctly. But this is my interpretation. Again, it'll be on the website. Of the female victims, 77% were stalked by someone they know.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not surprised.
64% of the male victims were stalked by someone they know. 59% of female victims are stalked by a current or former intimate partner. 30% of male victims are stalked by a current or former intimate partner. Girls are like, I'm over it.
Yeah.
The intimate partner there's another study. So the second study I was talking about is the Intimate Partner Stalking and Femicide Study of 1999. Femicide meaning women being murdered. So they studied female victims who were murdered by intimate partners and found that 76% of the murdered females and 85% of victims whose stalker attempted to murder them had been previously stalked. So it wasn't the first time. Oh, wow. Like, I think stalked by them. Which is really upsetting because that's exactly what you're talking about from the 80s, where these women were reporting it and the police were saying they can't do anything.
Can you imagine?
No.
It's so awful.
And then the third study was the National Sexual Victimization of College Women survey in 2000, they found that 13% of college women reported that they were victims of stalking during a 6 to 9 month period. 80% of these victims knew their stalker, who was often a current or former boyfriend.
Jeez.
It's like, just get over it,
I
dude.
know.
Maybe that's why she broke up with you, because you're a freaking stalker. Because it could be a current boyfriend. That's the thing. It's like, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
From the show.
I know.
I never really thought of it that way.
Yeah.
And it's like really weird.
So these studies were super important for the laws that are in place and need to be implemented, because they reveal specific types of stalking behaviors. So they found that their most reported type of stalking were more like surveillance behaviors, like following, spying, or waiting for them outside of the victim's home or school. And it was also commonly reported that they would receive unwanted phone calls, letters, and gifts. Less than 50% of victims reported being directly threatened by their stalkers.
Wow.
So that's the part that's hard about proving, right? So then from all of this, this is the part that's like, really, I think if anyone likes to write to their government or is political or wants to make a change in some way, the National Center for Victims of Crime recommends that the different states throughout the U.S. reconsider their stalking laws to include stalking via cyberspace.
Yeah.
And draft a new single law that covers all methods of stalking by vehicle, pager, GPS, email, spy cam, etc. This is a direct quote from them. Broadening the definition of stalking to allow the criminal justice system to intervene before stalking escalates into violence is the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Changes in existing stalking laws, however, should always be made with careful consideration of constitutional limits established by the courts. So this is referring to like whether the statute is overbroad and therefore violates the First Amendment, because you can't tell people they can't not have the freedom of speech, and whether the statute is vague and violates the 5th and 14th Amendments of the United States. I don't remember what those were, and I thought I wrote them down.
Well, pleading the 5th, so like self-incrimination.
Duh. Dang it. 14th.
14th.
It's talking about citizenship and civil rights. So I think maybe about what people can and can't do, where they can and can't go. So it's like violation of
your liberties.
Yeah. Let's say that for now. I swear I had that written down and now I don't, and I'm sorry.
It's fine.
But yeah, the point is that the hard part is that stalkers are coming up with new ways to stalk. So the states need to be more flexible and open to updating their stalking laws as technology becomes more modern, or evolves. Can't that be said about a lot of things, unfortunately? Yeah. But people are going to find a way to get around it and get away with it because it's state dependent, and they can look up the laws that the state does and doesn't cover. Yeah. And that's why a lot of people get away with it.
It's kind of the episode we did about peeping Toms.
Yes.
Where I covered like the cyber kind of stalking.
Yeah.
Like spying.
That was definitely cyber spying.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, stalking, because he was harassing via, the internet or webcams. But yeah, so it's super intense. And that, some states require you to get to the point of fearing for your life before the police can do anything.
Yeah, or basically getting some sort of physical altercation.
Yeah, and that the stalker has proof that you have proof that the stalker is capable of doing what they're saying they're gonna do.
And how do you get proof unless they do something to you?
What if so say you're like a really tall chick, like you're a 6-foot lady, and your stalker's 5 foot. But do the police think that the 5-foot stalker is not able to actually hurt you?
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean, that you're not capable?
Mm-hmm. That's so annoying.
So it's just very outdated. That website has a model, like call it like model code, I believe, where they basically have all, it's like very, very long.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I try to decipher all of this information. So it's a little bit jargony, but I tried to break it down because they basically have the law written out for the states, like ready to go. All you have to do is read this code and how we suggest that you write it into your laws and you'll be set.
It's like, so why wouldn't you?
I know, because they're the, congressmen's children aren't being stalked, basically. Because people can't relate.
Yeah. It's like, well,
I myself have had a scary situation that I'm not going to talk about right now, but it sucks. And mine wasn't even like violent.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure people can tell me about their stalking story. Or not me, sorry. This is my podcast about stalking. No, but I'm sure people have had their own versions of stalking, and we're going to talk about stories right now. Mm-hmm. That's just like, it really does happen, the way that you see it in the movies or that TV show You. Mm-hmm. How did that person come to meet you? Mm-hmm. Was it by accident? Was it not?
Ooh.
So.
Yikes.
So would you like to tell us about some
I was just
dwelling in the laws? Isn't that crazy though? So I didn't talk about each state.
No, yeah.
Because it's more of like every law is so different.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things that they take into consideration that you actually have to prove, which I think is insane.
Yeah, that's so annoying.
It's very backwards thinking.
Yeah.
I know. Feels like they're protecting more of the stalker than they are the victim. It's like okay, it feels like these laws are made by men who think that it's nagging women about people bothering them. Mm-hmm. And okay, so they're bothering you so much, prove it. Yeah. How much are they bothering you? To what extent are they bothering you?
Yeah, it's like, oh, they're just being hysterical. Like, they're not actually going to hurt them.
Until they're dead.
Yeah.
So. And, like we said, 1 in 12 women, and that was back in, what did I say, 1998? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know. Take a deep breath. Let's talk stories and get more worked up.
I have, like, kind of a longer one. I don't know if I'm going to read it verbatim.
Okay.
But this one is about like on college campuses, because I was reading other articles that it's very common on college campuses, like you were saying.
Not to make it about me, but my situation happened in college, so I can relate.
Yeah, that's what the article was saying, was that it's like that's where a lot of if women are going to be stalked, it's like a high probability of it being at college. So this happened to the person in the first year. They were at university and they were living in the dorms. Mm-hmm. And I guess this is important. Each floor had a specific like key card entrance. So you like, even if you were living in the dorms, you couldn't, and you lived on one floor, you couldn't necessarily gain access to the dorm section on a different floor.
Weird.
So that's the person's setup. So I guess this was during Halloween, and she was an athlete but was injured, so she couldn't really do a lot of stuff except for just she was on like bed rest or something. So she was watching some movies in her room, and a guy popped in to introduce himself, and they talked a little bit and exchanged email addresses, and that was kind of it. And she says the first warning sign was that he walked into my room behind me, despite me saying I was going to walk back to my room. She said she felt very awkward but was kind of being polite, but kind of trying to imply that he needed to leave. And he wasn't getting the hint. And so finally she had to say, "You need to leave my room now." She didn't really think much of it. Maybe he had been drinking or something. But she did wonder how he got onto her floor and that he wasn't with anyone.
Like she didn't recognize him from the floor.
Yeah. when she went to bed that night, she checked her, or before she went to bed, she checked her email and she had 5 emails from him already.
Wow.
And the first said, "Hey, I'm so glad we're friends." And the rest were asking why she wasn't online. So
yeah, that's how you get someone to talk to you online, is by asking why you're not online. This is okay for people who are young. This is like the equivalent of getting text messages.
Yeah,
basically.
So she says a few days later, she gets a knock on her door when she's studying, and it was him. She explained that she was busy because she needed to study. He tried walking into her room again, but this time she was a little more forceful and like put her arm like against the frame and was like, "No, you can't." The next day he came to her door again, and then the next, but she pretended she wasn't there. So when she got a knock on the door a few days after that, she checked the peephole, no one was there. So she assumed like she got a package or something. So she opened the door, and lo and behold, the creepy guy was there. That's how she refers to him.
Perfect.
He had been hiding from the peephole so this is her talking, so that I would be more likely to answer the door.
Yikes.
So at that point, she tells her roommate to never open the door if he's there. And she told
not there.
Yeah, apparently. And so then that's when she told the people on her floor that this guy was creeping her out.
Good for her.
So that if he wanted to get on the floor, regardless of what he was telling everyone, like, don't let him in.
Yeah.
So this is a few days later. She got a text from a friend saying, "Don't come home yet because he somehow got on the floor and he's sitting in front of your door."
Oh my gosh.
I know. And
that gives me I can like picture that.
And so she decided to stay the night at a different friend, like a friend's house that didn't live on campus. And when she got home, she was told by the friend that he had waited for 4 hours sitting in front of her door before he left. So at that point, he began waiting outside the building for her and would follow her wherever she would go. And then this is her talking. She says, "I was too spineless to tell him to go away, and I tried to be more passive about it. I never spoke and never gave any indication that I was paying attention to him, but he followed me to class, the cafeteria, and always tried to follow me home and get access to the floor."
Oh my, no.
And so she goes on to talk to her resident advisor. And then the RA, that RA talked to because apparently he lived in the dorms. So that her RA talked to his RA. Apparently he was telling his RA that they're dating.
Oh no.
And that they're together. And this is what's sad, is that his RA believed him.
Well, yeah. So, why wouldn't you believe that?
It was.
Oh, you mean over the other RA saying that she's being a stalker, or he's being a stalker?
He's like, no, they're just dating. So I was like, that's pretty bad. Because
that means that guy must be charming enough to convince his RA that that's real.
Yeah.
But if he never saw them together, unless he saw them walking, he's like, look, we're together.
Maybe.
Oh my gosh. Oof.
So the only thing that she felt like she could do was always be with a group of friends.
Yeah.
So she always had someone with her when she went to the cafeteria. If she wanted to go out, walking to class or to the bus, everything was done in a group because she noticed that was the only thing that did deter him. Like, he wouldn't try to follow her or be close to her if there was a group.
Kind of like literally stalking, like hunting. If you're hidden, it's going to be less quote unquote fun or, successful than when you're with a group.
I know. It's so... She said one time he got onto her floor. When someone else was coming home, he forced his foot in the door to let himself in. She then hid in another room while he went to look for her. And then she went downstairs and ran out the other side of the building to get into her room. And then she says the phone calls started. She had never given him her number, but he somehow got it, and her room phone, and would call 1 to 2 times a day until she finally told him to leave her alone. Then the calls became every hour with him begging and pleading for me to talk to him.
Ugh.
And then she said she didn't have caller ID, so she needed to answer the phone because of her school and part-time job. She said she was a wreck. She was tired of having to plan like simple things like going for food. She was starting to get really stressed, losing weight. She went back to the RA and begged her to help. She went to the head of the dorms and explained everything, like how long it had been going on. Her roommate told them that he had followed her a few times, demanding that she tell him where I was.
Yeah, so that's that thing of stalking someone else.
Mm-hmm. She doesn't know what went on behind closed doors, but from what she guesses, he was told to leave me alone. I keep switching like
It's
from
okay.
her and me. And he was told not to have any further contact, and he would get kicked out of the dorms if he did.
Yeah.
There was one email where he went insane on me, telling me how awful I was. How could I do this to him? We were so happy together. Surely I was cheating on him with other men, and then after that, nothing. At first, she'd see him around on campus. She would run to the bathroom and hide. And she said if she saw him around town or on campus, he'd always just be staring at her.
Oh my gosh.
But never tried to approach her or get her attention, just staring.
It's almost worse.
Yeah, and that's how that story ends.
So then we never know what happened. Just
It seemed like he left her alone, but then not really.
Yeah.
Because if he did catch her.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, I mean, you'll have the tips at the end and stuff, but do you have another story? Do you want to talk about you?
We could talk about you.
It's funny
If
because
you
I'm
want.
saying you,
I
but
know.
you. So if anyone hasn't seen You, go watch it right now. Pause this episode.
Or like skip a few minutes ahead.
Skip passes. But here we go. Spoilers. You is a TV show on Netflix that is about stalking from the perspective of the stalker. Really. Mostly. That's how they start it.
Yeah, he narrates. Or like you hear his inner dialogue.
Yeah, his like inner thoughts. And it's how he meets this. I have the chills like talking about this. It's how he meets this girl, Beck, who he, meets at his work. And basically this story is him becoming obsessed with her and finding a way to integrate himself into her life to somehow bump into her while she's wasted and almost dies. So then he ends up saving her life. Oh my gosh, this story is so complicated. He stalks her to the point of knowing her livelihood and patterns of what she does and where she goes. Step in here at any minute.
But I feel like he was just observing her at that point where he had to save her.
That's called stalk. That's what I'm saying.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if that was necessarily his plan at that point.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Because I think he was smarter than that. Like having this whole plan. Because then it's like, why are you here?
Yeah.
So I think that kind of messed up his plan. But then she was drunk enough where I don't think she questioned.
She didn't question it quite. So, sorry, back up a little bit. The show is showing him following her without her knowing, and his inner dialogue. And the way his inner dialogue is, like, what it's saying is it's justifying his stalking actions.
Because he needs to help her. He needs to save her.
She's someone who's, self-destructive and a partier and has bad friends who don't care about her. And he knows better, and her boyfriend doesn't really love her, so he really should be the one who's with her. And so he learns about these things in such a creepy way, but as the viewer, you're like, oh, that's fine. Like, I understand. Like, I guess I can understand where he's coming from. Yeah. But then in the next second, he's outside her window, getting off to her, doing her own stuff.
Yeah. But then it's like they meet randomly at the bookstore he works at.
Yes.
But then he gets her full name and then goes online and searches her, and he uses the excuse of, well, all of her social media is public, so she wants to be seen.
She wants to, and that's what exactly he talks about. Like, oh, Beck, like, you want me to see this. You want me to see your legs. You want me to blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And then like, cause her apartment is like bay windows.
Yeah.
Doesn't have curtains. She never closes them. So he's kind of like, oh, like you want me to like watch you and
like you don't even like your boyfriend. But yeah, the point, like he basically follows her when she gets wasted, and then like you said, observing her, she's in a train station, falls off the train, what's that, like deck or platform, thank you, and almost gets freaking killed. Saves her. She's like, who are you? So starts to sober up after he gets her. I think she throws up on him.
Yeah.
It's actually a really good like TV show. It sounds, I don't know if we're describing it well, but he basically gets her phone, then has access to her cloud. She gets a new phone. Why didn't she have Find My iPhone? I don't know.
Apparently your phone doesn't, like if you lose the phone, that old phone doesn't stop working.
Apparently, according to the show. So he, even though she has a new phone, he has her old one, and he can see all of her texts and emails and stuff like that. Yeah. And then it turns into her boyfriend / guy she's hooking up with, in quotes, you know. He gets removed from the picture via the stalker.
Yep.
And
because that's what's best for her.
That's what's best for her, because according to him.
Doesn't he say something about like most significant others say like, I'll do anything for you,
but they don't really mean it?
He's like, but Beck, I mean it. Like I would do anything for you. Yeah,
there's a lot of foreshadowing. But yeah, it goes on to basically he becomes obsessed with her, and then they're actually in a relationship, and he's able, not somehow, but just watch it. I don't want to give like everything away. But he works his way to becoming her boyfriend. They're obsessed with each other, and just like not any relationship. I'm in a special relationship. We're not breaking up. But in the storyline relationship, they have problems, and they talk about not being together anymore. And he thinks it's because of other things. And he gets real extreme about what he would do for her. And when she doesn't reciprocate, he blames her. Yeah. He blames her for his actions. He blames her for his stalking of her, who is the victim. And she, this is where the chills come in, freaking finds out and like backtracks everything. It's like, oh my holy shenanigans. You got to me via all of these avenues and removing everyone important in my life so that you would be the only one. AKA like you. Yeah. Pretty addictive show. There's a lot of like twisted turns, and you're like, is that gonna happen? And then it gets a little like, you're like, okay, I feel better, or if I feel worse. But
shout out to John Stamos. So weird. I didn't like his character and how he looked, and just his general vibe. Yep. So it's very interesting.
You should go watch You if you haven't already. So let's talk about, if you're ready for this, this is from Psychology Today, the different types of stalkers. Ooh. So we can kind of talk about like the stories we just talked about and whatnot. So this is from psychologytoday.com, the 6 types of stalkers plus one. Dr. Ronald M. Holmes, Professor Emeritus of Criminology. Emeritus, for those who don't know, means retired, but still considered a professor.
I didn't know that.
I Googled it, and now I'm like questioning it as I'm saying it.
Well, it sounds right, but I didn't know that. So
I had it fresh in my search. Wait a second. Having retired but allowed to retain their title as an honor. Like they can keep the title. You can't be a retired professor, apparently.
That's weird.
That's why it's called Professor Emeritus.
It's like, how dare you call yourself a professor
who's not
you're retired
professing now.
All you can profess is that you're retired.
No, that's sad. Dr. Ronald M. Holmes, Professor Emeritus of Criminology, proposed these categories of stalkers. Domestic. I'll read them and then we'll talk about them. Okay. Domestic, lust, love scorned, celebrity, political, hit, as in murder for hire, and revenge. I know. So domestic is when someone's stalking like a former partner or spouse, as you can imagine.
Or current.
Yeah.
From the show.
This is the most prevalent kind, which can manifest in the workplace, putting innocent bystanders at risk.
Mm.
And I think even, like we were saying, like in college or anything like that, where there's like a lot of people around. Lust. So serial predators who stalk victim after victim. Kind of like the you guy.
Yeah.
Serial rapists and murderers may begin as lust stalkers, like Ted Bundy is their example. So stalking, I kind of like we talked about peeping toms.
Mm-hmm.
Stalking is like that, what is it word? Not segue, not entry level, transitional. Gateway.
Yes.
Gateway crime. That is hard to define, unfortunately.
Yeah, apparently.
Another category is love scorned. So an acquaintance, coworker, neighbor, etc., who desires an intimate relationship with the victim, but is rebuffed, like your story.
Yes.
A subtype of the love scorned stalker is someone with the delusional disorder, erotomania. So that's like actually that one story for real, where they're like not getting it.
Yeah.
This type of stalker, which is usually female, believes her target is madly in love with her. The woman who repeatedly broke into David Letterman's home and stole his car, claiming to be his wife, is one example.
Ooh, that's so creepy.
How awful is that?
Yuck.
Which is funny because the next category is celebrities. I'm surprised that wasn't used for that, but okay. Those who stalk famous people, like John Hinckley. I don't know who that is.
That's the guy who shot Ronald Reagan.
Oh, see, I'm really bad.
Because he did it for Jane Fonda. If I'm completely wrong, then...
Okay. He attempted to assassinate U.S. President Ronald Reagan. He wounded him with a bullet that ricocheted and hit him in the chest. 13 charges. Does it say he's been released? Yeah, he's currently released.
No way.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. He's 63.
No, that's too young.
John Hinckley Jr. Oh my gosh. 1981. Yeah, he shot
but he
Ronald
killed
Reagan.
Because he fired several shots. I think that's where one of those like gun laws, the Brady law, comes from, because one of his security officers was very badly injured. But I guess maybe he didn't kill anyone. So
he was reported to have been driven by an obsessive fixation on Jodie Foster.
Oh, Jodie Foster. I knew it was... I was close. It was a JF initials.
Yeah. Hinckley was found not guilty by reason of insanity and remained under institutional psychiatric care until September 2016.
Whoa, I'm surprised we didn't... Well, maybe we did hear about it on the news.
What?
That's really
Public
crazy.
outcry over the verdict led to Insanity Defense Reform Act of 1984, which restored the rules for consideration of mental illness of defendants in federal criminal court proceedings in the U.S.
Wow.
But yeah, September 10th, 2016, he was released. Yeah, he was obsessed with Jodie Foster. Actually, he was obsessed with the 1976 film Taxi Driver, which featured Robert De Niro, plots to assassinate a presidential candidate. AKA why he became obsessed. The Bickle character was partly based on the diaries of Arthur Bremer. Blah, blah, blah. He developed an infatuation with Jodie Foster, who played a child prostitute or a child sex worker, Iris Steensma, in the film. When she entered Yale University, Hinckley moved to New Haven, Connecticut for a short time to stalk her. He even enrolled in a Yale writing class and began slipping poems and messages under Foster's door and then repeatedly called her. Yeah,
whoa.
This is insane.
I didn't know all that.
I know. So failing to develop any meaningful contact with her, he fantasized about conducting an aircraft hijacking or committing suicide in front of her to get her attention. Yeah, because that's going to freaking work. Eventually, he settled on a scheme to impress her by assassinating the president, thinking that by achieving a place in history, he would appeal to her as an equal. Hinckley trailed President Jimmy Carter from state to state and was arrested in Nashville, Tennessee on a firearms charge. Penniless, he returned home. Despite psychiatric treatment for depression, his mental health did not improve. He began to target the newly elected president, Ronald Reagan, in 1981, and to this purpose, he collected material on assassination of JFK. This is one of his quotes, if you'd like to hear. So Hinckley wrote to Foster just before attempting to kill President Reagan. Over the past 7 months, I've left you dozens of poems, letters, and love messages in the faint hope that you could develop an interest in me. Although we talked on the phone a couple of times, I never had the nerve to simply approach you and introduce myself. The reason I'm going ahead with this attempt now is because I cannot wait. I cannot wait any longer to impress you. What the hell?
Oh,
are you kidding me?
This is so gross.
Yeah. He attempted to kill him, to assassinate Ronald Reagan on March 30th, 1981, when he shot a .22 caliber 6 times at Reagan as he left the Hilton Hotel in Washington, D.C. Gnarly.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting story too. Or like just the attempted assassination part, because they didn't even know that, like, they knew he was shot, but they didn't know how severely or where until he started to almost lose consciousness. And then they took him to the hospital. They couldn't find the bullet for the longest time.
Weird.
Yeah. So it's
obviously didn't actually kill him, but that's the celebrity type of stalking. Sorry, I've been a little detour.
No, it's okay.
I was like, wait, what? That's crazy.
A little sprinkle in a little presidential.
So it's that one's kind of combination celebrity political.
Yeah.
But this one, actually, this isn't really political stalking is actually motivated by political beliefs, which is weird, which could include either agreement or disagreement with the victim. And the example they give is Sirhan.
Okay, that's another one.
I don't know who that is either. Why are you so good?
Because I like history. He killed Robert Kennedy.
Okay, wow.
I think.
Oh, yes, you're right. Sirhan Bishara Sirhan is a Palestinian with Jordanian citizenship who shot United States Senator Robert F. Kennedy on June 5th, 1968. He died the following day. He was convicted of murder and is serving a life sentence at the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego County.
Oh, cool.
And he has been released.
No.
I'm just kidding.
Oh my God. All these
I'm just kidding. He's actually still incarcerated in San Diego. So go visit. Just kidding. Don't visit him.
No.
He assassinated him, which is so, so awful. He was shot 3 times, once in the head and twice in the back. The 4th bullet passing through his jacket. And Robert died 26 hours later, which is so, so tragic. 5 other people at the party were also shot, but all 5 recovered. Okay, so in a 2018 review at the Washington Post, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said that he believed that Sirhan did not kill his father and that a second gunman was involved.
Yeah, a lot of those, it's the Kennedys, but that one has a conspiracy.
I feel like we should do that kind of conspiracy. He's pretty old now. Oh, yeah, he's had 15 parole hearings. Good luck with that.
Yeah, good luck.
No thanks. A hit, which is the murder for hire type of stalker. Stalking of a victim by a hired killer in order to commit murder. So that is a type of stalking. You're getting murdered, but the purpose is stalking them to kill them.
Jeez.
Ugh. And then the professor, emeritus professor, proposed adding one additional category to the list, which is revenge.
Oh.
So an angry former employee, an aggrieved business partner, a resentful neighbor, a vindictive relative, or any other person usually known to the victim whose motive for stalking is payback. Which I feel like kind of even that guy that you were talking about is like a kind of a combination of these, that he was like, I guess that's kind of like you as well, the show. He's like, I did this for you, but now. So yeah, stalking has like a really weird overlying like category that feeds into so many other things. That's so crazy.
Ugh.
The example they give for this was the ex-con Max Cady in the movie Cape Fear, where he stalks Sam Bowden, the lawyer who represented him at trial. I haven't seen it.
See, that's a movie, so I don't know.
I know. I should know that one. I haven't seen that movie, but I've heard of it. We should watch it. So the problem is that there's no really reliable profile to figure out who's going to stalk someone.
That's
necessarily. There are patterns that have emerged. although these fall short to provide a reliable like checklist, they've learned some interesting patterns that stalkers have. So they typically, and this is mostly for the US, they typically are unemployed or underemployed, in their late 30s to late 40s, or they're these are all ors, or a high school and or college graduate. I think they're ors. More intelligent than most criminals. It could be any race or ethnicity. And they're mostly male, although erotomania is manifested overwhelmingly in females. And they're often delusional. I mean, if you're stalking someone, you have to be delusional. But yeah, they're saying that there's a lot of personality disorders that were present in more than half of the stalkers evaluated in a clinical and in one specific study. Generally, few stalkers are actually psychopathic, but some may be narcissistic, borderline histrionic, or antisocial. Not really sure what histrionic means. And what's interesting is that women tend to be, one study they said that women tend to be more afraid of being stalked by someone who they don't know, because it's more like mysterious and unapproachable, unpredictable, and incapable of anything. But being stalked by someone you do know is more likely, and it's more finite, and the victims think it's more manageable because they know them. But that's the creepy part, is that they can have more access to you because they know you. As MFM says, F politeness, man.
Yeah, for real, especially in this case. But then you have to be careful too, because you don't want to anger them either. Yeah, if you're like,
it's kind of putting your foot down before it becomes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. It's like not your fault that you're not putting your foot down, but there's ways.
Yeah, and I think that's going to the point of it's hard to profile these people.
Yeah.
Because, like you go on a date with someone and they're fine, but maybe you just don't really want to date someone seriously or whatever. And then it's not until that rejection, or you don't want to be with them anymore, then you see that they're delusional and crazy.
Exactly. And people have different levels of what they consider is considered stalking. I had a former coworker who, I forgot what the exact circumstance was, but she was telling us a story how there was this guy she met at like a sandwich shop, probably like Subway or something. I forgot exactly what he said, but I think she was saying that he was kind of like sweet and awkward, but she thought that was cute. And I think he asked for her number or something, or he like found her on social media without her like necessarily giving information or something like that. And she was telling us, and we're just like, my coworkers and I are cringing, like, oh my God, like this guy is trying to like access you and like stalk you, like this isn't good. And her response was, oh my gosh, it was so cute. And we're like, no, like that's not cute. So some girls get they could be flattered by something that maybe they're not getting like that much attention, and so they're like, oh, thank you so much, like they're following me, like I feel so I don't know what the word is, flattered. Yeah, like that's the only word I have right now, but
that's like like they're getting attention, or like well-intentioned, that there's not like anything below, just like, oh, they just like want to be around me.
And that's what makes you wonder, right? It's like, what if they, like, even in my situation, like what if in the other girl situation, what if you do give in and you're like, oh, okay, sure, like let's date, let's be something. Would they have acted like that? Probably not.
And that's kind of like you.
Well, I'm saying, sorry, exactly, like they're never gonna not have some level of something that's deeper seated really bad, it seems like.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Because the fact that they're doing the stalking to begin with,
because that's not normal,
there's something very not right. That I don't like. I'm trying to think, like, are there success stories or like stalking gone right? Like I don't think so. I don't think there's such thing,
because unless you're thinking of like and I don't think it's like real stalking, but all the memes of like, oh, your best friend like has a crush, and then it's like the girl putting on the FBI hat.
Oh yeah,
like that kind of stuff.
Like when people say Facebook stalking, because and that's the thing, right? Like and that's why that show is so good, because you kind of understand where he's coming from, even though you're like, I probably shouldn't, or this feels wrong, but he makes it sound right. That whole like, okay, well, if it's visible, are you not supposed to look at it? But you have access to it, so you're going to find out all this information about these people. You could.
And I mean, I feel like some situations it might not be a bad thing.
Right.
Like potential friends, potential boyfriends.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly. But
you're
the
not
stalking, because stalking when you start harassing and following and surveilling them.
It's one thing to look up like a new friend's like photos and stuff versus now I'm outside of the new friend's house and I know
watching them like on one another's schedule,
and now I'm at their work and now I'm at their school,
or following their brother, boyfriends. And that show's so good because he follows her friends, he's kind of doing a surveillance of everyone to get the bigger picture of her life to then have control, because it's like that control thing, wanting to have possession over something that they can't have normally. So they have to literally infiltrate their victims' lives. Yeah,
it's so weird.
It's so bizarre. But they're still learning about it. That's the crazy part, because it is such a broad spectrum of stalk, There is not one defined stalker or
and
type
is it
of
like
stalker.
The thing of, is it like within all of us and it's like a certain situation? You know how you're saying there's the different types, and it's like that's what triggers it, or it's just if the situation happens and you do it, or what? It's weird. Yeah, it's just, and then like we're saying, the rise of social media grants you even more access. So so to think about all of these things and all of these circumstances, and now thinking about the state laws that we covered and how many holes there are now, even bigger gaps that people can work the system, and you have to have the burden of proof for stalking and proving all that. It's just like, oh my Lord. Yeah, because if you're like posting Instagram stories with locations of like where you are currently, and then that person shows up, anyone can show up if it's public too. Yeah, but then I guess that's where the proof is harder, because it's like, well, how anyone, like, I live down the street from here, so I'm just here because that's what I do. Right, and then they could look at that location, follow you home. So it's like, but should you not, that's that thing of like freedom of what you like. Do you want people to know? Because technically that's a risk. Yeah, and it's like, you can do that. You can have public social media, but I think if that's the case, I think you should be more aware and kind of follow those rules. I feel like we've talked about it of like not posting your location where live. You currently are at that moment, because then that also can lead to other things of like, okay, well, she's not home, so then I can rob her house. Or if I'm the stalker, then I can go follow you. Or wait out. Yeah, follow you, see you, wait outside. Because then if you're not home. And he does that too. He literally meets her where, I mean, he had her phone, so he's always, they were texting, but still. Yeah, or they can know that you're not home. They can wait and hide. Yeah, at your house, wait for you to get home or whatever it may be. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's, I feel like, ways of being safe, but also having a public profile. I think if you at least are aware of the risk of it, like, we're not saying to live in fear and like never tell anyone where you are, because you definitely should, your friends and family should know where, I think, where you're at in general. There's just smart ways of going about it. Yeah, and just keep being aware of your, I mean, you're going to go over that, right? Like being aware of your surroundings and like tips and stuff. Yeah. Shall we? Yeah, let's talk about it. All right. So these are just some things you can do if you are being stalked. Some of these are kind of not basic, but I'll just read them anyways. So always, if you feel like you're in immediate danger, call 911. Yes. A big thing is trusting your instincts. I think you kind of mentioned it of like, don't downplay the danger. Like, this is a real thing. Yeah. If you feel you're unsafe, then you probably are. Take the threat seriously. Danger is generally higher when the stalker talks about suicide or murder, or when a victim tries to leave or end the relationship. They have a lot of good resources for like hotlines and victim service agencies, domestic violence or even rape crisis programs that you can get in contact with. Let's see. One of the big things that I saw, which I didn't really think of, is having a safety plan. Sadly, stalking occurs like for years sometimes.
Yeah.
If you are in a state that maybe has a higher burden of proof, these advocacy groups say that it's very important for you to have a safety plan, because on some level in that situation, you kind of are on your own.
Yeah.
More so than maybe in a different state.
Like, it's up to you to figure out what you need to do.
So it's like including changing your routine, arranging places to stay, having friends or relatives go certain places with you. Also deciding in advance what to do if the stalker shows up at different locations such as work, home, school. So kind of like letting your employer know, your children's schools knowing.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's pretty easy to be like, oh, like I'm so-and-so's like uncle or aunt or, you know, something to gain access. So kind of playing out those scenarios so that you can plan for them. But not like you shouldn't be afraid to call 911.
Absolutely.
But stalkers, it seems like, don't really go away. And so you should be
not
prepared.
Necessarily on their own. No, it tends to get worse.
Yeah. And that's what I think that they're saying. Like, you obviously know at some point that you're being stalked. And so when it starts to escalate, you need to have a safety plan. Don't communicate with the stalker or respond to attempts to contact you. I think this is very important too, after hearing about like the law requirements. Keep evidence of the stalking. If the stalker follows you or contacts you, write down the time, date, and place. Keep any emails, text messages, phone messages, letters, or notes. Photograph anything your stalker damages. And the same thing with injuries that the stalker causes. Make sure you get witnesses to write down any statements. And then it's kind of sad. I think this is from victimsofcrimes.org.
Yeah.
They have a downloadable stalking incident and behavior log.
Oh man.
Because like that's how.
Yeah, because it doesn't just go away.
And you need to build that.
It usually
case.
you literally have to keep track of it because the police can't do it for you. And that was one of the other thing I say is, like, I think I kind of touched on it earlier. Something might not seem dangerous to an outsider, but within the context of what's happening, it can be considered a threat.
Yeah, and so if you make note of that,
exactly,
time, date,
picture, like even though that is a really creepy love letter, keeping it isn't you accepting it. You have to have some proof, and that's why you need to look up your state laws and see. I mean, I think you should do that anyways, but especially knowing what is required of you as a victim to prove the crime on you. Yeah,
it's just so heartbreaking that like you're going through such a traumatic like time, because it's constant. You're constantly living in fear of this person showing up.
Yeah.
Not only are you dealing with that, but then you have to be your own kind of like personal, either like law enforcement / lawyer of secretary of keeping track of all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like while detective, it's happening to you.
Yes.
And it's just, I don't know. It's a lot.
And just for the record, those feelings don't always go away.
No, yeah, that's what it's like.
Just because they're not there anymore doesn't mean, like, what if you see that person's face? What then later? Yeah, and that's a big thing of hearing stalking stories, or like on those channels and stuff, of even though the person may end up going to jail, not going to be for
it's
a
not
long
for
time.
a long time. And so it's almost like it gets escalated because that you're the one that put them there. And so you're constantly checking of like, when are they going to get paroled? Yeah. Because then they're going to, you know, probably at least first thing they do.
At least on the federal level, that's that pretrial where the victim can come testify about whether or not they should be or how they get released or whatever. The means of that. But
yeah.
Each state, I didn't have time to go into each state, but you should look it up. Not you, but in general.
Yeah, that's one of their tips too, is making sure you're aware of your state stalking laws. Consider getting a court order that tells the stalker to stay away from you. And although you might not want to, it suggests telling family, friends, roommates, coworkers about the situation, so not only that they're aware if they see this person, but then that's also kind of like they're going to be there to support you and help you.
Yeah, and they could become a next victim, or in addition to, or threaten them to say like, where, like that one guy, like, where is she? Tell her I'm looking for her or whatever.
Yeah, and then kind of along the same lines, if your work or school or like apartments or wherever you live has security, like make sure that they know and have like a picture of the person. And then there's a few bullets on what to do if you know someone being stalked. It's kind of, common sense, but it's good to hear.
I feel like people, sorry, just really quick. I feel like people think they're overreacting. And so they think to brush it off because that's what we're raised, like, be tougher, brush it off. So like, even though you're saying it's obvious, it's like people don't necessarily know that it's okay to do these things.
True.
Which sounds silly.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid to take these measures, even if someone might not understand or think that you're overreacting, because we understand you're not.
Yeah. So it says to listen first and foremost, show support, don't blame the victim for what's happening to them, and just remember that every situation is different, and allow the person being stalked to make choices about how they handle it. Find someone that you can talk to about the situation. Because I feel like, if you know someone being stalked, then you kind of also need, like you were saying, to kind of educate yourself too, and even, prepare yourself, or, self-defense, or, kind of be more aware of your surroundings. Oh, yeah, that's the next bullet point. Take steps to ensure your own safety.
Yeah. Sorry, these were things about if you're a friend.
If you're a friend of someone being stalked.
Yeah. Carrying pepper spray.
Yeah. Let's see. This was good. There's the National Domestic Violence Hotline that you can call. It's 1-800-799-SAFE. We can put that up there. They can put you in touch with like a local victim advocate, and they can talk to you about like how to stay safe and like plan. But yeah, then that website kind of goes into it more, like if you are being stalked and you want to look more into it, of like what that safety plan looks like and how to document, so that you can take it as a piece of evidence to the police.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And then it also kind of goes on, like you were saying too, of like technology, just being safe in that way, because stalkers can use technology to stalk you.
Yeah.
As well. And
don't be afraid to file a police report, because if a police, just because we're saying that the law isn't upholding stalking as a crime in specifics, it's a crime in all the states, but because there's certain requirements, doesn't mean you cannot file a police report. You can always file a police report,
and then that's evidence.
In fact, I would recommend, just from my own circumstance and from what we're saying, the first time you have a feeling that this is what's really happening, go to the police so that they're informed. Because if you go to them, this is just from what I'm guessing, if you go to them 6 months in, it's like, well, where's the proof that this started 6 months ago? Even if it is a letter, is the letter dated? Did you write that date on there? Did they write that? Like, how do I know that they wrote that? Well, how do I know that you didn't just write that letter to yourself and you're trying to get them in trouble? So, like, don't be afraid to go to the police to report it, so it's documented right away. And then you could build that case for a restraining order or whatever it may be.
Exactly.
And it's unfortunate that the victim themselves has to do that. But if it's happening to you, then take the measures you need to do to protect yourself and your loved ones. It sucks, but unfortunately that's how the law works.
Yeah. But that's kind of the basics. It goes more into depth about like the other kind of like specific stuff. But
no, but that's like super helpful to like know that there are resources.
And that website in general is really good.
Yeah.
But it's just like so sad seeing here we made a victim, like a behavior log for your stalker. It's just like, ugh.
Yeah. It sucks that it has to be that way, but there's stuff that we can do about it. So that's what we're trying to do right now, is to educate you guys, because it really effing happens and it really effing sucks. But the more you talk about it, the more you educate, the more that we can we as like the community of the
Yeah.
world
Mm-hmm.
can maybe help stop stalking sooner,
Mm-hmm.
or help them get their own help. Like it's
Yeah.
bad. Like they
Mhm.
need, not saying like I mean obviously the victim needs help, but stalkers obviously need help too, like some
Mhm.
kind of mental
Yeah.
help. So even that peeping Tom, remember, he was the one, he
Mhm.
was like, I knew I had a problem and I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if you yourself are a stalker and you need help,
Yeah.
don't let it progress,
Yeah.
because it's
Exactly.
not gonna work out for anybody.
Mm-mm.
That's just heavy.
I know.
I'm like, so I feel like we both got really worked up.
Yeah. I didn't realize it, but I probably should have.
I know. It's just like I said, like I don't want to talk about it right now,
Oh yeah.
because for my personal, I don't want to give the stalk, like my problem in the past, the power
Mm-hmm.
of the story currently.
Yeah.
But it's just like it really does happen, and there is no cookie cutter stalker story.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. So just because you have someone that you think is a stalker and people are telling you no it's not, doesn't mean it's not,
Yeah.
or doesn't mean you know what I mean.
Yeah. Always go with your gut.
Follow your gut. If it feels weird, it is.
Mm-hmm.
If something's not right, it's just not.
Yeah.
And if nobody else believes you, tell us.
Yeah.
because we'll
Or
freaking
keep
believe
telling
you.
people until someone
Yes.
does.
Talk
Get
to
the
if
police.
nothing
Yeah.
else, even if the police think you're annoying, freaking report that
Mhm.
ish.
And get
Get it-
that report, because
get that
police
report.
officers do not like writing reports.
No, so get it right away, as quickly as you can.
Mhm.
Document it, scan it, keep it, do what you have to do.
Yep.
And there's help, and we are here to talk about it. So,
Mm-hmm.
man, I personally feel better talking about it, and
Yeah.
knowing that that there are resources and ways.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's up to us to fight back.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Definitely.
stalker stalk. I was trying to have a comeback for the victims, but I didn't have one. I was trying to say like stalker stalk, and we're here to talk, something like that. And then we're gonna them up. No, I'm just kidding. But man, okay.
Yeah.
This is the awkward part. Oh, I have a story. That's what it
Okay.
was. I'm like, why do I feel like you're looking at me weird? I know this is a long episode, but so that we don't feel so totally weird, I have a 2-part story. And it's short. It's super short. It's short. Don't worry. But it's the same theme. It's totally unrelated.
Wait, it's the same theme?
No, the 2-part story is related, but it's unrelated. It's wow, my brain.
I was like, I don't think that's gonna help if it's just the same
No, it has to do with animals.
theme. Yay.
In a good way. There's this photo is going viral where this is from BBC.com. The caption is 2 gorillas have been photographed posing for a relaxed selfie with the rangers who rescued them as babies.
No.
Look at this picture.
No.
It looks like they're hanging out.
The belly on that one. Is that real?
That's real.
That looks like a person in a monkey suit.
Gorilla suit. Correct
Whatever.
yourself. They're different.
But he looks so like...
Exactly.
He's
It's like the
definitely
relaxed.
posing.
He's definitely relaxed and posed. It says the gorillas are apparently trying to imitate humans.
That
So-
one, because I swear that one looks like it's just a person.
It does.
A gorilla
It
suit.
does. It says the image was taken at a gorilla orphanage in Virunga National Park, District of the Congo, where animals were raised after poachers killed their parents. The park's deputy director told BBC Newsday that they had learned to imitate their carers who have looked after them since they were found. The gorillas, he added, think of the rangers as their parents.
That's
I know.
so cute.
The director told BBC that the gorillas' mothers were both killed in July 2007. The gorillas were only 2 and 4 months old at the time. Shortly afterwards, they were found and taken to the, I'm going to butcher this, Senkwekwe, Senkweque sanctuary in Virunga, where they have lived ever since. And since they've grown up with the rangers who rescued them, they imitate the humans and stand on 2 legs as their way of learning to be human beings.
But it's like they're long, like they've like stretched out too.
They're
so
like totally postured up. The ranger said it doesn't happen normally, but he was very surprised to see it, and it was super funny. It's very curious to see how a gorilla can imitate a human and stand up. Being a ranger, however, isn't always fun. It's mainly dangerous work. Unfortunately, 5 rangers were actually killed in the Virunga National Park last year in an ambush by suspected rebels. I feel like this is a whole other episode.
Jeez.
Sorry, I thought this was going to be more fun, but...
I
And then
see the picture.
more
What's
than
it
130 park rangers have been killed since 1996.
called? What?
Eastern District, I think it's District of Republic Congo, DR Congo, is mired. They're in conflict between government and various armed groups. Some of these armed groups are based in the park where they often poach animals. But here's the second part of this. There's a lot of conflict between the government and poachers, as I was saying. So in South Africa, the title of this from BBC News, I saw this link and I was like, oh, heck yeah, but it's kind of sad.
Oh no.
The title is South Africa, poacher killed by elephant, then eaten by lions.
Oh.
If that isn't like the sick of life, I don't know what is.
I mean, good.
So, a suspected rhino poacher has been trampled on by an elephant, then eaten by a pride of lions in Kruger National Park, South Africa.
So the poacher killed
No
one.
Well, the poacher has poached things before,
but
he in this
wasn't
case,
successful.
the an elephant trampled him.
Oh, I thought he was like he had already killed one of them.
No. So, I mean, I don't have all those details.
Okay. Well,
I just have the BBC details.
come on, BBC.
So, accomplice poachers told the victim's family that he had been killed by an elephant on Tuesday. This was only on April 7th, mind you, earlier this month.
I was going to say,
2019.
that sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah. So, the family was notified that the poacher was killed, which is still sad. Someone died.
I mean,
But they're a poacher. And the friends told the relatives. The relatives then notified the park rangers. And a search party struggled to find the body, but eventually found a human skull and a pair of trousers. The managing executive of the park extended his condolences to the family, which I think is pretty freaking nice considering they were poaching in the park.
Okay, so it was illegal.
Poaching is illegal.
Okay.
Yes. There is no such thing as legal poaching.
Okay, I don't know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't hunting.
Oh, okay.
Poaching is, and there's such thing as fishing, like poaching for fish. Poaching is an illegal type of hunting.
Okay.
Killing things that are protected.
Okay. I didn't know if there was like...
There are certain places where you can hunt
the big game.
the big game. However, if you're called a poacher, it means you're in the sanctuary or somewhere that's protected where you're not, where it's easier. Typically, poachers are killing animals that are easier to kill.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore like animals in nature that are okay to hunt, so to speak, any kind of animal, run away and are actually difficult to kill. And that's what makes it hunting, quote unquote fun. I could never hunt personally, but whereas poaching is, I don't have the actual definition in front of me, but it's going somewhere where it's easy and illegal to kill.
Got
typically.
it.
So they're poaching on these animals because they want their, the ivory
trophy.
or the trunk or whatever, not the trunk, horns and what have you. So the ranger said that entering Kruger National Park illegally and on foot is not wise.
Well,
it holds many dangers, and this incident is evidence of that.
yeah, you can't mess with nature, man.
So apparently the national park has an ongoing problem with poaching, and there remains a strong demand for rhino horn in Asian countries.
Dude, it's so annoying. I was reading about that. It's like, you need to educate people.
Yes.
It does not help
No.
anything.
On Saturday, Hong Kong airport authorities seized the biggest haul of rhino horn in 5 years, valued at $2 million, estimated 1.6 million euros. So yeah, I mean the fact that what am I trying to say? What's that? Not irony. Moral
Poetic justice.
Poetic poacher justice. Damn, that feels good. That's sad. It's sad.
It is sad, but you can't
do that.
You can't do it. And if you're gonna, even if it is like a protected area, there's still wild animals. That's the risk you're taking. You're
a poacher.
You're trying to kill those animals, so they're probably also gonna try to kill you.
I mean, honestly, it's kind of not surprising. I know that they're wild animals, but they're in like a protected national park, so good for them that they still have it in them. Yeah,
I feel like they could sense.
They totally know.
It's not a good person.
Animals are not smart. Animals are not dumb, is what I was trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
And this one also says that there's around 2,000 lions in this national park, so not really bright to be alone.
But see, and then that's the thing too. But when it's worth millions of dollars,
yeah.
At
what risk are you going to risk your life? I just like that it was two animals, like they
together,
teamwork.
Mm-hmm.
And elephants, you just think elephants are nice, but they know right from wrong.
Yep.
But anyways, that was the happy ending. That's why I was like, it's kind of a weird, different kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I feel like poaching is a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But anyways, don't stalk people. Don't stalk animals. No stalking. No, thank you.
Just say no.
All
okay,
right. Well, great episode, guys. If you have any experience with these things, I mean, if you want to tell us your story, you don't have to. If you want to tell it anonymously, you can send us an email and we won't say your name, or we won't have to read it out. We can talk about it, whatever. But if you guys do want to share so that other people know what you've experienced, like, we're here, listeners are here, the whole community is here. So that's all we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Is just let you guys know, like, what the laws are, get the facts, know your risks, and protect yourselves,
Yep.
And that you're not alone.
Yep.
And you're not paranoid.
You're not paranoid.
All right. Well, have a good rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.